Hello, thanks for joining us today. My name is Fernando Lopez. I'm the Executive Director of San Diego Pride, and I use they, them, their pronouns. Happy Pride Month, happy Pride season. It's so exciting today to kick off our Pride season. We've got one of the most influential LGBTQ leaders in the state, Senate President Pro Tem Toni Atkins, a hero of mine. Please welcome Senator Toni Atkins.
Fernando, thank you. It's really great to join you today.
Well, it's just so appropriate and exciting that you're here at the beginning of Pride Month, Pride season, kicking it off with us. And I just personally want to share for folks that, you know, I've been in San Diego for 22 years. I moved here as a homeless kid. And in that time, I got my start in activism and grassroots organizing. And one of the things that always impressed me was that when we were holding these small rallies and marches and really fighting for our rights, you were one of those out and proud elected officials who would come to our rallies and speak at our rallies and marches. And it always meant the world to me that we had a leader like you out willing to be at the front lines with us like that. So just thank you so much for being there with us that whole way, and just excited to share space with you today.
Well, thank you. What an honor it is to get to work in our community and to do the work we do. I mean, I remember meeting you when you were in the restaurant business, frankly.
Yeah.
I was a staff member or a council member, and I just always just loved your energy, always. And didn't even know your story or who you were really, except you were this incredible person I got to see during the week.
And I always remember you coming in for lunch and just being so excited when you would come in. I was like, I know she doesn't know who I am, but like, yeah, I would nerd out. So I'm a big fan, obviously.
Well, back at you, Fernando.
Well, thanks, Toni. You know, we're here kicking off Pride Month, and so what does Pride mean to you, and what are some of your memories of your first Pride?
Wow. Well, you know, it's been 35 years since I got to celebrate my first Pride in San Diego. I got here in 1985, too late for our Pride celebration in the fall, but I was ready come 1986. And just what it felt like to be able to be out in the sun in San Diego, surrounded by people with positive energy and love, and the opportunity to just be together as community and proud of who we are. And you know, I think about this year and the theme resilient. It's perfect for this year and the year that we've been through, but it's really perfect for our history and how far we've come and what we've had to endure to get here. So I'm just thrilled. Every year I get excited, and I'm in the Capitol and we celebrate Pride Month in the Capitol. We honor people. So, you know, I like as the Pride Month, the whole month, and then into Pride in San Diego. It's always a wonderful time.
Yeah, we get like a few extra weeks of Pride season. I feel like we get all of June and then a couple weeks of July. So we're extra special here.
It's true. I think, you know, right now, given this year that we have been in, Jennifer and I, one of the things we like to do during Pride time is relish the music of our history, past and current, watch films. More recently, Jennifer and I watched again, it's an older film, Paris is Burning. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah.
And we went back and watched it because we started binge watching Pose. And
Nice.
Pose is just so fabulous. It's about the galas and the balls in New York City. And it's also a time when HIV and AIDS was rearing its head and people were coming to grips with that. So it's a fabulous thing about who we are and our energy and how we create family. But it's also a hard time in terms of recognizing that AIDS was upon us and what it meant. So we're binge watching that right now, but it's a reminder of what a wonderful community we're part of and how far we've come. And, you know, Pride is just a special time always for us, especially when we realize we still have challenges, that
We're
our
still.
trans siblings are attacked, that API hate has reared its head. And that gets to the whole concept that you talk about of intersectionality in our community and why we still need pride.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm so glad you brought up all of those things. It's like, first of all, Pose is amazing. Love it. Paris is Burning. Huge fan. And you brought up how the trauma that many of us endured living through the HIV/AIDS crisis, and we still haven't solved that pandemic, right? We're still living through that pandemic, and many of us are still recovering and finding our own resiliency as we're recovering from what the HIV/AIDS pandemic meant for us. And now we're coming out of another pandemic, hopefully on the other side of this, and finally able to come together again. And so thank you for calling out that theme of resiliency, because I think it really does speak not only to the year that we've endured as a human species, as a global human species, but additionally as a community for something that was so re-traumatizing for folks. So, obviously our community is no stranger to adversity, as you said, and I think it was really important for us to call out the strength of our community's resiliency and have that be a hopeful reminder for folks.
As it should. I agree.
Well, so our next question is, you have had some amazing historic firsts. You are first lesbian interim mayor of San Diego in 2005, first lesbian speaker of California Assembly in 2012, the first woman and first openly LGBTQ person to lead the Senate, and you also got to be governor for a hot second. So, what can you share some of your journey into politics and what advice you might give to a young person or someone of any age who is afraid to be the first or step out into that world?
Well, let me be honest. I did not know I was being the first in some of those regards. Clearly, I have to say it's about community and relationships and following your dream. It all starts with that. When I came to San Diego, I worked at a women's clinic, which allowed me to do some work with lesbian health issues like that. Went to work on Chris Kehoe's campaign, her historic campaign. She was our Harvey Milk, our pioneer that got elected in San Diego. And it was a movement. It wasn't just an election. It was our first opportunity with a viable candidate who had a record of working in community across lines and issues. And she got elected. And she was really good at her job,
Yeah.
representing people. And, one of the things Chris shared with me that I really took to heart was listen to people actively with purpose. Don't forget the constituents or their stories. And our community is all about stories. It's all about connecting those stories, finding our own family if we have to, loving our families, but finding our own. And I just have to realize I certainly wasn't the first. Chris was the first in San Diego, but I think about the pioneers that don't often get mentioned. Elaine Noble, Kathy Krazachenko, both who were elected in the 70s and 80s, and just based on a platform of work that needed to be done. And, I'm in California. California is all things we like to think progressive, the cutting edge. I grew up in Southwest Virginia, and I didn't think I would have opportunities like I have as an elected official or a public servant in Virginia 35 years ago. But let me tell you what makes me really proud. To see that the first transgender person elected in the country was Danica Rome from my home state of Virginia. Now, granted, it was Northern Virginia she was elected to represent, but she ran on a platform of transportation and infrastructure, for goodness sakes, and along with it came everything else she represents. And to me, that's what it is about when you want to accomplish anything. It's about follow your dream, your passion. It's about maximizing the relationships that we have. Um, I think all of that is important when Kamala Harris, our vice president, says, I may be the first, but I will not be the last. We know that's true from our own history. Chris Kehoe was our first, but she wasn't the last. 21 elected officials in San Diego County. We have more out LGBTQ plus people elected than the city of San Francisco, which we consider our community mecca in the country. So, that lets you know that we have been successful. I mean, we're just talking politics, I know, and elected office, but in so many realms, we have been successful because of who we are, how we present ourselves, the work that we do, the relationships we build. That it's bigger than us individually. And when I say it's just been an honor to represent this community, I'll never forget Scott Peters telling me one time, my colleague on the city council now, Congressman Peters, when I say I have a community, I have a people, he says, I want a people, and I know he meant that with a great heart, which is you are so fortunate to have a people. And it's a people born of conflict and difficulty and trying to be who we are and being marginalized and not accepted. But we have a people. And our people get to celebrate Pride. And so for all of the first I have accomplished, it really has been because of the ability for us, and I think it is us as a community, we have the ability to understand what others go through, what other marginalized groups go through, what other issues. We listen and we try to work together to accomplish. And I think my non-gay colleagues recognize that about me, about Chris, about members of our caucus, that we're about something bigger than just ourselves and just our one community. It's back to that intersectionality. So I would just say, do the work, follow your passion. Remember, it isn't just about you. And I do believe good things will come. And I do think you shouldn't be afraid to put yourself out there, because you have more support than you could ever imagine, more and more growing support to be successful.
Yeah, I know that's all great points. And I think more and more what I'm seeing, and I think what all of us are seeing is very acutely in the last year, is that intersectional work, and all of us sort of understanding that we're all combating hate. We're all combating systems of white supremacy. We're all fighting for better education, employment, and housing, some of the fundamental things that allow us to just be human beings and thrive. And so the more that we can look at all of those issues across our differences, we have an opportunity to really solve some things. And you see these, our Latinx coalition or the Apimeta coalition and the Black coalition and the LGBTQ coalitions, and we're all this big family and we're interconnected. And so I do see that really happening in a tangible way here in San Diego, is more and more these organizations and what some folks might have seen as disparate communities. The LGBT community as a marginalized community gets to sort of go in there and say, hey, we're part of this too, because you can be Latino and LGBT, you can be a woman and LGBT, you can be Black or API and LGBT. And so all of those interconnected networks helping to lift each other up. And that's really a testament to folks like Christine and you, Toni, and Todd, and that you didn't just push open the door for yourself and say, I'm here. And what I've really seen y'all do is open that door and lift up the next person and the next person. You don't get to 21 elected officials in the region for no reason, right? It's there because we're all here to support one another, and not that folks won't disagree from time to time, right? But that we're really there to coach and mentor. And that's one of the things that I really appreciate about you, at which brings us into our next question, because I love this story about you. I know the Honorable Christine Kehoe is such an important mentor in your life, and you really have a great story that you've shared many times, and I've heard you and Dr. Shirley Weber both share this story about how you uplift each other and mentor each other, and I was wondering if you could share that story with everyone watching today.
Well, Chris is and continues to be an incredible mentor to me all the time. Even now, Shirley Weber, I will just tell you, I consider her family. I love her. When I was new to San Diego, I saw her as chair of the Board of Education speaking. And if you've ever heard Dr. Weber speak, she's incredible. And yes. I never forgot that. And when I got into elected office, there were times that I would reach out to her and ask her advice. And then when I approached her to run for office, because she had this 40-year educational background, education is one of the biggest issues in our state. It's one of the most important. I wouldn't be here without the education I was able to get, the public education.
Yes.
And I reached out to her and I asked her to run for the assembly. She didn't talk to me for a month. She's like, I thought you were my friend. And I said, but we need you. And she ran for office, and she won, of course. And I heard her tell a story once about how I was her mentor. And it really kind of almost would have knocked me off my feet, because I did not see myself as a mentor to Shirley Weber. In fact, quite the reverse. I saw her as my mentor through the years, a touchstone, that I could look to for advice and for wonderful things. And she said that, and I came home and I shared it with Jennifer. I said, that just blew me away. It freaked me out. I don't know what to do with that statement, because I don't see it that way. And my spouse said to me, Jennifer, she said, that's called reciprocal mentoring. And I thought, I like that. It meant that, she had mentored me for decades, whether she knew it or not. She was someone I admired and respected and tried to emulate. And then she said that I had helped her because I'd gotten elected. I became speaker, and I helped her get elected because it was the right thing to do for our community and for the state. Obviously, Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. But it really made this whole concept of reciprocal mentoring something that I now think about, that we mentor each other, and so much so that wonderful Harvey Milk breakfast. Yeah. That I got to see Ryland tell his story, and I realized how little I knew about non-binary and about, issues that, being someone that is much older than many others, how much I had to learn and who I was learning it from. And Ryland, along with a few other young folks, Chase Gleason and Cyrus Clay and a number of others, were the impetus for the Gender Recognition Act that I did. And then, of course, what's embarrassing for me to share with you is I didn't know the language. I didn't quite understand all of the intricacies of what it meant. And I had to have my younger staff teach me. And not all of them were LGBTQ, by the way. But they knew more than I did. And I needed to rely on them to do this piece of legislation. And one of the greatest things I have is a picture of me and those young folks with a copy of the bill signed by Governor Brown, who I had to explain this bill to, by the way.
I'm sure.
But he signed it. He knew how important it was. And I had this, and I got multiple copies made for the young folks. And I said, you made this happen. They did. I had the influence and the power. I had to get the votes, but I had the influence and power, but it was them that told me it needed to be done. And so reciprocal mentoring means a lot to me in so many ways, starting with Dr. Weber and Chris Kehoe and ending with Ryland and Chase and Cyrus and so many others.
Well, I always love when you share that story, and thank you for sharing the piece about Ryland and Chase, because like we were saying, you didn't know that you were going to be the first, right? But you ended up being out there up in front. And so for these younger folks who are that age, or they're teenagers, and I don't even know if Ryland was a teenager yet when that passed. No. They get to look at someone who is in a position of power and authority, who is very well respected, who is saying that I see you, I welcome you, you are part of this leadership. And it is that continuum of power and leadership that we've been building ever, since before Stonewall and all through Christine Kehoe to you, and now these 21 different elected officials, and maybe the future leaders of our community who, rather than, being bullied in school or not having supportive parents, had parents who were standing next to them with another community leader like you by their side, having their back. And that makes such a huge difference for not just our young people, but for folks who are my age. I'll be 40 this year. It means the world to me too, to see that sort of stuff out there. As a non-binary Latinx former homeless youth, to know that all of this work is building towards something, and we're really shaping a better state, a better city, a better country. And you're a huge part of that. And I love that lateral mentorship. I've always remembered you and Shirley sharing that, and it's something we try to instill here at Pride with, I think I shared with you, our oldest volunteer is like 85 and our youngest volunteer is 12. And so there's so much intergenerational mentorship and collaboration that happens here. And it really was your story that sort of stuck out to me. Like, okay, how can I be really intentional about this with our organization? So you really don't know the people that are watching, that are listening, that you're mentoring at any given moment. So just really thank you for that.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate what I learned from so many people. And again, it goes back to Chris telling me, such a simple thing. People say, oh, I listen. Well, do we really listen? How do we listen? Do we listen with our ears? Do we listen with our heads? Do we listen with our hearts? And sometimes it takes all three, Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've got a little bit of time for some other fun questions. So this one, you don't have to pick a favorite if you don't want to, but what is your favorite restaurant in San Diego?
Well, that's like asking who's your favorite child. And, I'm just going to, well, I'll just tell you, I like to eat. I like to eat. I love to eat. And, I like good food, and I've just spent the last year and a half losing 60 pounds, a healthy way, juicing. So I will tell you, there's hardly a place I won't try. And being from Southwest Virginia, sushi is one of my favorite things, which my folks back home make fun of me. They call that bait. I love sushi. But, I like every restaurant. And I will tell you, Jennifer and I have made a huge priority out of trying to support our local restaurants during this pandemic. Even as we were dieting and trying to eat healthy, we were going to every restaurant and doing takeout. So I hate to not answer that question, but I encourage everybody to get vaccinated first and foremost. If you haven't, it's important. Continue to respect the guidelines, but go enjoy these great restaurants, because it's going to bring our economy back. And so many of us work in the industry. So,
And there's so many wonderful LGBT businesses in Hillcrest with some great food. And, Tony Duran, who's on your staff and is one of my best friends, one of our go-tos is sushi as well. So we're right there with you. And I'm a huge eater. I couldn't pick. I think I spent most of my pandemic ordering from every local restaurant I possibly could. So
it'll be so exciting come June 15th when things open up. We still respect the health rules that we should get vaccinated, but go back out into the community and celebrate these small businesses. And it's where we gather. It's where we gather, and how we're going to be able to hug each other again, and all those wonderful things.
I can't wait. So just last thing, any last words or messages for the community you'd like to share before we part ways today?
Well, I just think that, I feel so grateful for everything. It's been a hard year. I've lost family to COVID. I know people have. So for those of you listening who have lost friends and family, my heart goes out to you. And at the same time, just know that you are part of a great community, a community that really is resilient, to go back to the theme, and we will come out of this bigger, bolder, and stronger. And we have learned things from this pandemic that we didn't, anticipate that we would learn, but it's really brought into focus the inequities in our society. I mean, many of us knew that there was inequality and issues like that, but this starkly brought it into perspective with Black Lives Matter and racial and social justice issues. And what I'm thrilled about is we've been able to take a lot of that, what the community has said, and turn it into legislation at the state level so that California can lead the way on some of these issues. And we can invest resources and money into programs, health care for undocumented individuals, child care, educational opportunities. All those things are happening. And I'm just grateful that I get to be part of this. And I appreciate so much the community allowing me to be in this position. You're not a leader unless people allow you to be in that role, And each of us is a leader to someone else in some way, shape, or form. So we should be mindful of that and accept the responsibility, but do it with glee, appreciation, and the fact that we can, and we've come so far.
I love that. And I love you so much. We appreciate you so much. And just so grateful that we live in a state like California where we can have leaders like you actually being responsive to these social justice movements and leading the way in this work. Toni, Senator Atkins, thank you so much for sharing your time with us. It's so valuable. We appreciate you. Happy Pride season. I can't wait to see you again in person.
Happy Pride. I'll see you during some of these upcoming fabulous events that are planned. And I want to thank you and all of the folks at Pride, the volunteers, the staff, the supporters, for making sure that we're going to get to celebrate Pride even in a pandemic. I look forward. Happy Pride.
Thank you. Happy Pride. Thank you everyone for tuning in, hanging out with our LGBT Q&A with Senate President Pro Tem Toni Atkins. Always a pleasure hanging out with you. Thanks so much for sharing your time with us. As Toni alluded to, we just announced all of our events. Well, actually, not even all of them. We announced over 20 events yesterday. You can find them on our website, sdpride.org/pride. We have more events to come. Really excited about that community march coming up so we can march back into Hillcrest on July 11th. Thank you so much again. If you appreciate our programs, consider making a donation to San Diego Pride at sdpride.org/donate. Thank you so much and happy Pride.